over 8 billion people in the world. Now, just like the video which we've watched, it say that's about 8 billion opportunities in the world. How are we ready to deal with the rising population? And we've also seen and heard that it's even more common amongst the poorer people to have more children. Is this because there's some economic interest, or do they see this as some opportunity, or is it because of a lack of awareness? So we'll be talking all about population today with Margaret. Good morning and welcome to the Weekend Show, madam.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. I like the fact that you're from the National Population Commission. What is the purpose of the National Population Commission in Nigeria in the first place?
You want to look at our work?
Like for the viewers at home to understand what you do as a
Okay.
commission.
Thank you very much. The National Population Commission has several statutory mandate to deliver to the people of Nigeria. And most time people think we only do the census. But beyond the census, we do a lot of other statutory activities on behalf of the government. And one of them is to coordinate the formulation and the implementation of the national population policy. And within which we anchor issues of like the World Population Day, almost all the population and development activities. We also take charge of the civil registration and vital statistics, registering of birth and death and marriages. And we also delve into activities working with the Ministry of Interior, Nigerian Immigration Service on migration. We also houses the national frame. We have the cartographic department where we divide the country into small pieces where you can count, you can do surveys. So we have what we call the national frame, where we have partitioned the country into little portions where you can count the people, you can use it to do survey, and many more activities, but those are the key. And we also advise the government on population issues, emerging issues, the direction of the population, what's the age structure, where should the government pay attention to? Is it the women? Is it the young people? And we also lead in the implementation of the demographic dividend agenda in Nigeria. I know in 2017, Africa adopted harnessing the demographic dividends through investment in youth as an option to drive development in Africa so that we'll be able to realize the Africa we want by 2063. And that was adopted from what the Asian tigers achieved to develop their region. So the National Population Commission also handles that on behalf of Nigeria.
Thank you so much. So there's a whole lot which I didn't even know, and I'm just learning about what you do. Just before the last administration handed over, there was a planned census which was meant to take place, but that was suspended. I read in the news last week that the president met with the head of the Population Commission. So do we have a potential date for the next census?
Well, I'm not supposed to answer that question.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have, I think the chairman has the prerogative, as the lead in the National Population Commission to answer that question. So I think I would like to step down on responding to that, because it's a high-level conversation that the lead of the commission should speak to and address the nation on.
I mean, Nigerians will be hoping to hear about that, but you spoke about how what the Commission does is also understand the issues around population growth and how it affects development and the people. What are the positive and negative impacts of population growth in the nation?
Okay, I would like to give a background information on that. Nigeria currently is the 6th most populous country in the
so
world.
It's no longer 7, it's now the 6th.
Yes, it's the most populous because we are now over 216 million people. And our annual growth rate is still 3.2%. And the total fertility rate at the national level is 5.3. That means that an average Nigerian woman throughout a lifetime of reproduction is expected to have 5 children. That's at the national. And if you move into states, there are states that have up to 7 children, 9 children per woman, and we also have less in some states. But putting it together, we have that. So Nigeria's population is rapidly growing. Our fertility is among the few that is yet to start declining as it is expected. So we have an age structure that is more of young people. And you know what that means to a country like Nigeria, which is still a developing country. So if we go by the youth policy, the prevailing youth policy of Nigeria, which pegs the young people or the youth at 29, below 30, that's 29 years. That means we have over 70% of our population that are under the age of 30. That means we have a lot to do to address that youth population. So population increase, if you don't have increase in terms of social development, social infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of health systems to take care of those people, in terms of creation of employment to absorb the young people that are coming out from university to have jobs, then we have a lot of challenges. For instance, we have what we call the youth restiveness. That means when the youth, the young people are not engaged in positive activities, they could be engaged in negative activities. And those are what are playing out in what we are seeing today. We're having a lot of insecurity challenges across the country. One of the contributory factors is that our young people are not positively engaged as they ought to be. They come out of school, they don't have job, they become depressed. And the next thing is that anybody that is ready to use them for any activity, they will be available to do that. So the population growth is good, but when we don't have things to use that population, it becomes a negative growth for us. So that is what Nigeria is facing now.
So, and I like that you said it's good, and you've also mentioned the negatives which could amount from not being able to use this high level of human capital which we have. For instance, India makes more money outsourcing technology than we make from crude oil, which means that they're not just providing services with their large numbers just for India, but for places all over the world. Sort of call centers, a lot of IT support centers, you have them in India. And so it's important for us to ensure that we're providing opportunities for these large numbers. I would like to hear your thoughts, and it's not the official thoughts of the Population Commission, on a birth rate policy. We've seen in China where at some point they had a large growing population, and then they had a policy of not more than one per family. And we've also seen in places like I think Hong Kong or Japan where they have an older population, and so they are now encouraging people to have children. Do you think that with the rate at which we are growing as a nation, so we went from about 2.6 to about 3% annually, do you think that a birth rate policy is appropriate anywhere in the world, not necessarily Nigeria?
I'll start by flashing back. And in 1988, during the time of Professor Ransom Kuti, the then Minister of Health, Nigeria had the first population policy during President Babangida's time. And that policy had a provision that women should not have more than 4 children. And our culture and people at that time kicked against it, and that population policy was never really implemented. And between 1988 and now, we've had 3 different population policies. Because of the way that particular caveat in the policy was reacted to, the subsequent population policy did not peg the number of children that women should have. So, but we have provisions for family planning, where women are encouraged. It's voluntary though, that you practice family planning, but for us to have the benefits of family planning, it starts from education. When the women are educated, when they go to school and complete at least a minimum of senior secondary school, they have knowledge on how to manage their body and their lives. They would know when to marry. They will decide how many children they should have. And they will be able to space those births by practicing family planning and also spacing of birth. In that way, we will be able to manage our fertility regime and our population. But if we want to compare, look at what happened in China or in India. But you know, currently now, India has surpassed China. India now is the leading population in the world. When you peg the number of children and people, the policy is strict, like it was in China. You tend to have what we call the skewed population structure. Now they are battling to get back their population because the one-child policy affected them at a time they didn't have young people anymore. The population was aging. So they now have a lot of aged people, and the population is drifting towards that. And you see they are revising it. So it's better to have a balanced policy, that at all times you have children, at all times you have young people, at all times you have older people. So we don't ascribe to those strict policies that we don't want to shrink. As much as we want our population to move from quantity to quality, we don't want our population to shrink. We want to always have children. We want to always have young people. We also want to enjoy the presence of older people in our population. So that's why we ascribe and we preach and we promote family planning and birth spacing. But above all, we emphasize the education of the girl child.
I know this year the world population and they also focuses a lot on women and the girl child when it comes to inclusion. Why is that important?
You know, the women and the girls, emphasizing, I would like to reflect on the theme of the World Population Day, which we started the pre-event on the 4th of July, where the chairman of the National Population Commission and the resident representative of the United Nations Population Fund addressed the Nigerian people on this year's World Population Day, where we said unleashing the gender equality, uplifting the voices of women and girls to unlock the world's infinite possibilities. So why are we emphasizing the women and the girls? Because they're leading in fertility. When a woman decides to have 10 children, you cannot stop her. If she decides to have 2, you cannot stop her. She decides, particularly when she is educated and she knows how to access family planning, to practice family planning. I would like to pause here to tell the public, the people of Nigeria, that family planning is not basically contraception. Family planning has to do from cradle to grave. You plan your family. You plan when to go to school. You plan when to marry. You plan the number of children you should have. You plan your education. You plan your work. You plan everything. That is family planning. The contraception is just a part of the family planning. It has to do from cradle to grave. You decide the kind of family you want, the quality of the family you want to keep and maintain. So that's what family planning is. So, you know, people always think it's just contraception, and that makes the people to shrink not to do family planning. Family planning is all embracing, and that is why we implore the Nigerian people to practice family planning. Send your girl and your boys' children to go to school. They will be able to have quality households, quality children.
Margaret Edison, Director of Population Management at the National Population Commission. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge. I've learned so much from you, and we do hope to get you back on the show just to have an understanding of how the World Population Day event goes on the 11th and when the census starts, if you would like to share information to the public on what they should know about what's important. But just before I let you go, what are the fears that Nigerians have which you need to allay or clarify when it comes to census, because you have some people who are scared about it when the time comes? Is there anything you would like Nigerians to know as we approach the next census?
You know, the immediate previous government handed over to the current administration to do the census. And for us to proceed, the president leads. He will make a proclamation to the nation when the census will be done. So the National Population Commission will operate by the guidance of the Mr. President on the way to proceed. But I would like to conclude by calling on all Nigerians to take the education of the girl child very, very serious. We have to uplift their voices. We have to listen to the women and to the girls. We have to respect their opinion. We have to respect their body. And we have to give them the opportunity to excel like the male. That's why we're emphasizing gender equality. So on behalf of the chairman of the National Population Commission, we invite the people of Nigeria to commemorate the World Population Day that is coming up on the 11th of July with us. The venue is Rockview Royal, Zuma Hall. We will start at exactly 11 a.m. to discuss from different platforms and looking at different perspectives the importance of women and girls in driving the development of any nation. And we call on the new administration to put people at the center of development. There and then we will have peace, we will have progress, we will have prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret Edison. Coming up next, we have Somi Madugu, who is Miss Tourism Nigeria, who will be having a chat with Tenda. We also have Aisha B on our entertainment segment, Ayo, and a whole lot more. So see you shortly after this break.